Welcome to the Behind the Bits podcast. Your host, Scott Curtis, wants to learn everything he can about stand-up comedy and take you along for the ride. Scott and his guests talk serious about comedy in every episode. Behind the Bits will uncover knowledge from different perspectives on subjects such as writing and performing stand-up comedy, as well as booking shows and the comedy life. If you're thinking about becoming a stand-up comic, already in the comic game, or a comedy nerd, Behind the Bits is the show for you. Now, let's get Behind the Bits.
Hey, BTB buddies, I wanted to let you know that I have a Patreon page now so that you can support the show. Check out patreon.com/BTBPC and check out the cool stuff you can get for as little as $2 per month. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks, as always, for listening. All right, it's the Behind the Bits podcast. We are live again with an interview, and this is going to be a little bit different. So I normally talk to people in the comedy industry, either comedians or club owners or bookers or people that are in the industry. So I've got somebody that's not in the industry, but somebody who I think could help. His name is Scott Hardiman, and he's from over in the UK. He is a confidence coach. He gives men the mental toolkit to take their business to the next level by breaking through barriers and self-doubt. And I can tell you, as a comic, we have plenty of self-doubt to overcome. So I think Scott's going to be a good guest. And I'm going to bring him on right now. Here we are. Scott Hardiman, how are you?
Doing very well. How are you?
Great. So this is going to be a lot different than my normal interviews. I just want to ask, just right off the top, you're not in the comedy industry at all, but do you have any favorite comedians?
Oh, come on. In the UK or in the US?
Any.
If I'm honest, for US wise, I actually really love Kevin Hart.
Okay.
He definitely gives me a good feeling. And in the UK, have you heard of a guy called Michael McIntyre?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Very much love him as well. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. And so normally what I start talking about is who your influences are and stuff and things like that. Let's talk about your background, though, and instead of in the comedy industry, how do you find yourself becoming a coach like you are, a performance coach?
Well, I've had a quite an interesting career up to date, actually. You might be able to find a few jokes for what I'm about to say next. Anyway, so I was a funeral director, so an undertaker. I think you probably say in the US for about 10 years actually, which is different for especially in the UK. I started when I was 20, well actually younger than that I think, as an undertaker, and yes, that's where I started, and then moved into I was really into fitness, and I moved into personal training, so coaching in the fitness world, which I found a lot of what I was doing was helping people with their confidence, not just in the gym, but outside of the gym as well, in life, in their business and everything that they were doing. And then it was kind of a natural transition into what I'm doing now, which is helping people with their confidence outside of the gym in their business, but having that background as well. And I suppose you can a lot of what I did in the funeral world was, have to be quite emotionally intelligent to be able to deal with things that happen in those times. There's a lot of skills that I've used then that I use now as well. So that's kind of a very brief introduction of my career in a sense. Yeah.
That's a great way to come around it. And I do find that a lot of people who were in personal training tend to go into this business coaching type thing. And I have to agree that, I do a physical fitness regimen myself, and that you have to get your mind ready before you start the physical stuff. And then also while you're doing the physical stuff, that helps your mind. And they both feed into each other. And anytime that I decide to blow off doing my my fast walk or my run or my bike ride or whatever, then I didn't have as good of a day as if I had done it. So I
Yeah.
can definitely see where the physical activity part comes in to really help with the mental stuff.
Yeah, and I was very much all about my body, and I hardly ever paid attention to my mind, if I'm honest. So it was fitness, fitness. What can I do to exercise? How can I make myself look better?
Mhm.
And I definitely put my mind on the back burner, and that's a large part of why I do what I do now is because I suffered for quite a few years with anxiety,
Mhm.
and it affected me and low confidence, which again it wasn't good for my working career, but also my personal life. So the
Mhm.
fact that I've had that experience, I've come out of it, has allowed me to be able to help others do exactly the same.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So were you able to come out of the anxiety and that self-doubt? Were you able to do that on your own, or did somebody help you?
No, so I put a lot of energy into. I hit a very low point, and I decided that I had to do something at that point. And it was enough pain, I think, for me at that time to actually really make a conscious effort. I needed to do it right then and there.
Mhm.
Otherwise, who knows what's going to happen. So initially, I started on my own. I dived into books, put my energy into so many different seminars and learning all about personal development.
Mhm.
And then I did get myself a coach as well. I found it to be really beneficial, someone that I could talk to, someone to be accountable to, where they
Mhm.
say, "Have you done this?" And I'll say, "Yes, of course." So yeah, a coach for sure helps me.
Uh,
But a lot of what I did was on my own actually, which I'm
okay.
very proud of in a sense. But yeah,
That's great. Now,
yeah.
we talked a little bit before this interview about comedians and our mindset and what goes into being a comedian. So just to kind of go over that again, kind of a rehash. So first off, comedians are artsy. A lot of people don't think of comedy as an art, but putting together a set that makes people laugh so many
Mhm.
times in an hour really is an art. And so you got the writing part, you got the performance part, and that's really the two things that comedians work on for a lot of them for like their first 10 years. And then they want to actually start making some money. and, and
Mhm.
that's really the hard part. And that's where we talk about comedians are go one of two ways. They either are not confident at all and they're scared to ask for the bigger spot. They're scared to go to the next level, or they're overconfident, and the overconfident kicks them in the butt, and they get knocked down a peg, and then they're scared to go back. So
Mm.
it's kind of the mindset that I see with a lot of comics, and so you put so much time and effort into it that you kind of forget what you're worth, first off, because if you see somebody do a half hour set at a club, they've probably put 2 years of work into getting that 30-minute set just
Mm.
the way they want it. So, and that's why, first off, you have to ask for money when you do a set. But second off, if you want to make a living at this, you got to find those times in your life where you're ready and find out how to get yourself in the right mindset to take you to the next level. So
Mhm.
that's kind of what comics go through. So thinking about that, I mean, it's really like any other business, though. It's not. You can't. The business part is the business part, and it's just like running. You know, any type of a startup. I mean, you're really taking you're selling yourself versus selling a product, and you're really trying to get, okay, I'm at this club now, and I'm doing pretty well. I want to do this level of club. I want to start doing theaters. I want to start doing auditoriums. The whole line like that. So basically, I think your normal approach with anybody who is in business would probably work for a comic. Do you think the same way?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I think If it comes down to confidence and actually stepping out into that world of theatre in front of a small group of people, and then extending that to larger groups, and you have that feeling of, oh, can I do it? All the work that I've put in, it's going to be over in a short space of time. What if people don't like it? Can I do it? All of these things that they're natural, right? However, in order to feel more confident in something, it is about taking action. I know it sounds really simple, but the more action you take, you learn and you grow from that, which means that you start to become competent at it. You start to become better, and it flows more. And when you become competent at something, you become more confident. And sometimes it can be as simple as that. And I make it sound simple, but if people out there are unsure about going for it, if they're unsure about booking that slot with that in that theatre or wherever it is that they're going to do the show, just do it. Take action and do it and see what comes of it. Because even if you just book it, that's one step. You'll start to feel a little bit more confident because you went in and did it. And then you'll learn from that experience. You'll then become a bit more competent. And then, like I said, confidence will start to come. So yeah, and that can be applied to comics, but a lot of business. If I want to improve the way that I coach, then I'm going to look at ways to take action to learn more, so that I become more competent at it. So then, therefore, I can perform at a greater level. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it sure does. So thinking about a new comic, so somebody just starting out, they've maybe been doing it for 6 months or something like that. What would be and they're getting their material together. What type of advice would you give them? Okay, they're juggling. They obviously still have a day job because comedy's not paying the bills. They may have a family. They may have other obligations, but they're really passionate about doing this comedy stuff. And so, what type of advice would you give somebody at that level to keep doing the comedy and also getting themselves into situations where they could possibly make a little bit of money at it?
Yeah, I would say, again, I would go back to that take action. Look at what you need to do to get in front of those people and perform and make a bit of money. Break it down. So with goals, if you've got a goal of, I want to stand up and do a show in front of a small group of people, you go, okay, what do I need to do to make sure that happens? Well, I need to make a phone call. Okay, I'm going to make that phone call. What do I need to do next? I need to make sure that I know my script and what I'm going to say as best as possible. Okay, I can do that. And as you start to take those small steps, I call it small chunking. So you have your goal and then you chunk up to that goal. And I would say, if you've got that goal, to make it less of a stressful time, I would try and chunk it down. So what do I need to do next? And then the next one. And as you start to go up that list, you'll get closer and closer to your goal, which will make it seem much more achievable. So if you're starting out, I would definitely recommend that.
Okay. Can you give me some examples? And this doesn't necessarily have to be in comedy, because it's the first time you probably talked about this, but some examples of how chunking works and maybe where the big goal is and how the chunking gets you to it.
Sure. So I'll give you an example of maybe in fitness. So if someone wants to say, I want to lose 10 pounds or 5 kilograms of fat. And you go, okay, that's a great goal. That is a great goal. 10 pounds of weight, 10 pounds of fat. That's a great goal. And often what will happen is they'll say, that's my goal. In 2 months' time, 3 months' time, they would have given up because they didn't reach their goal. And often the case why that happens is because they didn't actually set specific targets to enable them to get there. So yes, great goal, but how are you going to get there? So for example, in that instance, it would be, I'm going to make it specific. So I want to lose 10 pounds of fat by December 2020. I'm going to do this by running on the treadmill 3 times a week and lifting weights twice a week and eating a varied diet of X, Y, Z. So that is an example of making your goal specific and seeing the chunks and that you need to do in order to reach that goal. Yeah,
that makes sense. So let's put this in instead of a fitness perspective, let's put it in a business perspective. Say you want to start a coffee shop, and you want to, you've got the idea.
Yeah.
You've got the funding, and you have the building. Now,
Okay.
that's great, except for you want to make it successful. So
Yeah.
how would you recommend somebody would chunk that up so that they can actually, first of all, have a great grand opening, and second off, be successful enough that they're making money within 2 years?
Well, I suppose first of all, you've got to make sure you've got good coffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to make sure you've got quality coffee, and then it's about looking into what do I need to do here? How do I make it a success? It's
Mhm.
I need to make sure that people know about me, so I'm going to need to invest in marketing, or at least learn about marketing to enable me to show people that I'm here.
Mhm.
So that's a small chunking of a goal. Your goal's at the top here. What do you need to do to get there? You need to market yourself. So you look into doing that yourself, or you employ someone that can do it for you. Is
Mhm.
this coffee going to be good enough? Do I want to serve food? If that's the case, do I need to learn how to cook? Do I get a chef? These are the kind of things that I would recommend to someone that is looking to expand their business or build that coffee shop, like you said.
Mhm.
Does that kind of
Yeah.
explain?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes perfect sense. So let's think about uh habits and how people keep that mindset, keep a positive mindset, and get the
Mm.
confidence to go on. Uh, so a comic has to spend a certain amount of time writing. Um, a new comic is trying to perform. Let's pretend we don't have COVID. They're trying to perform, at least 4 times a week at open mics or showcases or bringer shows or whatever they have going on. So those are things that they have to do just to tread water,
Hmm.
to start being a comic. What types of daily habits and routines go into helping you, first of all, be confident, and also have a positive mindset going into the writing part and the performing part?
Sure. So I would say it comes down to our thoughts ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
How we view the world comes down to the way we think about ourselves and the world around us. So it comes down to our belief systems. Thoughts dictate our emotions. Our emotions then dictate the actions we take, and then the actions we take give us the outcome. So if we
Mm-hmm.
have an outcome that we're not very happy with, then we need to look at the action steps we took in order to get that outcome. Often, when you recycle backwards, you'll see that your action steps are based on the emotions that you felt. So if you're happy, you'll take positive, more of a positive action step. If
Mm-hmm.
you're angry, frustrated, your action steps are going to probably mimic that feeling, that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And then understand that our emotions are dictated by our thoughts. So if we have a thought of, I'm not sure that I can stand in front of these people and do this, I feel I have enough content that I can share, but maybe they won't understand what I'm saying. Maybe I won't project my voice well enough.
Mm-hmm.
If you think that, you're going to get an emotion that's attached to that, which is a feeling of maybe I can't, I'm not good enough,
Mm-hmm.
a bit of sadness and unhappiness, which means you're not going to take the action step to go and book that place to talk in front of people, which means you're not going to be happy with the outcome because you're not going to be getting anywhere with your show.
Mm-hmm.
You repeat, and it goes round and round. So
Yeah.
the fundamental thing to stay positive is to start listening to your thoughts. Are the thoughts that are going through my mind, are they in line with where I want to go? Are they positive? Are they uplifting? Are they empowering? Because if they are, the chances are you're going to get positive emotions, which means you'll take good action steps, which means you'll get good outcomes.
Uh-huh.
Um, so yeah, first thing I would do is create an awareness in the mind consciously,
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many things that we won't even realize that are just going on in our mind that could be limiting us and stopping us from going in the direction that we want.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so to give you a little bit of insight in the comics, the uh, a majority, I'm going to say, because I've talked to enough of them, a majority of comics are, they don't wake up with positive thoughts.
Mm,
A lot of them are clinically depressed. A lot of
mm,
them suffer the same anxiety that you suffer. They have issues, and
mm.
that's what makes them funny. Uh, so
Yeah.
that's the driving force to make them funny. So uh, you don't you don't want to eliminate what makes you funny. It's like say I suffer clinical depression and they put me on a drug that is just too much. It cuts down my emotions to a point where I'm just a robot. So
Yeah.
that hamstringing a comic like that is probably the worst thing you can do. However, those emotions can feed on themselves. The stuff that they write their material with can feed on themselves, and then they walk out of a day of writing saying, "Oh, I'm just not worth shit, and I'm not gonna even perform tonight." So how do you think you can achieve a balance between, okay, this left artsy brain that is kind of has a weird outlook on the world, and the right brain that needs to get jobs and stay positive so that you'll keep doing the thing that you love? How do you think you can meld those two?
That's a very, very, very good question. That's one I haven't been asked before, actually, and I'm glad you've asked that. So again, it's got me thinking. So I
Yeah.
would say that if you think about our belief system, so the things we believe to be true about ourselves or the world, like I said before, dictate the world that we live in. So
Mhm.
and the feelings that we experience and the action steps that we take. So if we don't feel confident, so for me in the past, it was I'm not a confident person. I never have been. I never will be.
Mhm.
So I was never going to feel confident because I truly believed that I was never going to be confident, and I never had been. So I'd
Mhm.
just be stuck in this world that I was in.
Mhm.
Um, but beliefs can change because it's something we believe to be true, but isn't necessarily true. And I'll give you an example just quickly. People used to believe that you couldn't run a mile in under 4 minutes, otherwise your heart would explode.
Mhm.
People just thought, no, you can't run a mile in under 4 minutes. And it
Uh-huh.
took someone to believe and train and do it for then this one person to do it, for everyone else to go, well, if he can do it, then I can do it. And
Mhm.
then other people started running a mile in under 4 minutes. So when it comes to beliefs, we can create these beliefs that are more powerful, that allow us to step on the stage and perform. But we can also keep the beliefs about ourselves that make us quirky by
Mhm.
saying, I'm a quirky person. I'm creative, and I'm a funny person. That I use my previous experiences to allow me to write well, and you can keep those. I had anxiety in the past. I still remember what it was like, and it enables me to perform better as a coach. So
Mhm.
although I don't feel anxious anymore, or I have anxious moments, but I don't let it rule my life.
Mhm.
Um, I can I'm in a much much better place, but it allows me to help other people as well. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah.
So you
You've
can
got
have the both.
you've got some empathy because you've seen it.
Yeah, and you won't
Yeah.
forget.
Yeah.
Just because you've experienced your depression or your lack of positivity and maybe writing in comedy, you can still have that creative part of you because you are creative.
Mhm.
Essentially, that is you. That's who you are. So you're not going to lose that by being more positive. I don't feel.
Mhm.
And I haven't experienced anything, although I haven't worked with any comics necessarily. But people they believe they're creative and they stay creative even though they feel more confident and they are reaching their goals.
Mhm. So one of the things that happens with comics, so one of the things that a comic has to do, and you've probably heard this before, they need to find their voice. They need to find out who they are going to be on stage, and that usually takes a while.
Mm.
A lot of comics start out doing like one-liners or just very simple jokes, set up punch, and then they turn into a little bit more of a storyteller and things like that. But I'll give you an example. I started out doing a very, very clean set, and then I tried to get a little bit edgier, and I found out that that doesn't fit me, even though I'm kind of an edgy guy.
Mm.
So on stage, it doesn't go right because I look like I always say I look like a pharmacist or a basketball coach. So it doesn't a wholesome act from me is the best act to put forward. So I bought into that, and I'm totally leaning into that, and I'm confident in the fact that that's the way I should do stand up. A lot of people don't find that. So one of the tough parts is to, first of all, know you found it, know that this is the one that's going to work for you, and then buy into it yourself so that you know that that's the way you're going to go from this point forward. What I'm asking for is advice on uh, when the how you found that voice, and having enough confidence in it that you're going to stick to it. How, what would you tell us if a comic came to you and said, "Hey, I think I may know what I want to do, but I'm not sure," and they're kind of wishy-washy about it? What would you say to them?
Yeah, it's difficult to answer because when we're in a kind of a coaching environment, I would ask plenty of questions. I'd say, "Well, tell me about what it is that you think that you found,"
Mm-hmm.
and but so it'd be a lot of back and forth trying to find out if there's anything underlying that we need to uncover. But one thing that I would probably do is work out who. A lot of the time, it's finding out who we are as people, and knowing that deep down. Like, who
Mm-hmm.
are you as a person? So how many times do you, if someone asks you tell me about yourself, you'll go, well, I'm Scott, I'm a dad or a husband, I work in this job. And often that's essentially that's a human doing rather than a human being. We forget who we are. And if I was to actually ask someone who they are and they thought about it, it would be, well, I'm kind and caring and funny,
Mm-hmm.
creative, and that's the kind of thing that I'd be looking into. Who is that person? Finding out who that is, so they feel comfortable in who they are, so that they can then perform
Mm-hmm.
better potentially. Yeah.
So, how do you get somebody to identify with who they are when they've been so wrapped up in what they're being? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? If you identify yourself, I, I think it's very telling when you ask somebody, "Who are you?" and they identify themselves as a husband and a father, or uh, a bricklayer, or a musician, or whatever. It's very telling that they identify with what they do instead of what they are. And
Mm.
I think most people would respond with what they do first, before who they are. How do you draw that who who you are out of somebody?
I bully them until they tell me.
Okay.
No, we sometimes it take a whole session to go through that.
Hmm.
It's about me telling them who I am,
Hmm.
giving them an idea of who I am. We go through some power words, some words of potential, and give me examples of what you've done,
Hmm.
um, whether you've potentially helped someone. How do you feel when this happens? And it draws out these feelings and these emotions and these words.
Hmm.
And then we go through them. If they resonate, then perfect. We work on repeating them over and over again, and it's just a nice process to follow. And when people are comfortable in who they are, obviously they feel more confident because
Hmm.
you know who you are, and you can go into life not dwelling on or doubting yourself as much as you previously would, because if you know you're a kind, caring person,
Hmm.
if you say something to someone and they take it the wrong way, in the past, if you don't know who you are, you don't know you're a kind and caring person because you haven't, you know, reiterated that to yourself, then you might
Hmm.
beat yourself up for weeks. Oh, I really hurt that person's feelings, and I must be a bad person. But if you know that you're kind and caring, if you've worked on that with a coach or with
Hmm.
someone or by yourself, then you can say, oh, "I'm ever so sorry. I didn't mean to offend you there,"
Hmm.
and you know deep down you're a kind and caring person, so you move on from that quickly, which means you
Right.
can then get back onto what you were doing rather than dwelling on the past.
Right. So you totally lit off a light bulb when you talked about the who you are part, because we were talking about your comedy voice, and if you can get down to who you are, I think you can find that comedy voice a lot sooner.
Mm, yeah, I
Don't
imagine
you
you
think
can.
so?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the same for a lot of business. If you know who you are, then you can better position yourself for your clients.
Hmm.
And we can't. I'm sure lots of people listening, and yourself as well. I know you can't please everyone. We can't.
Hmm.
Some people are going to like me, some people aren't. That's cool. You know,
Right.
that's absolutely fine. But if you know who you are, It's easier to find the people that will like you.
Mm-hmm. Now, somebody that comes to you and you finally start peeling back the layers and find out who they are, and I don't want to keep going back to the negative stuff, but it's very prevalent in the comedy world and my own life. So, it's personal to me. So when you start peeling back the layers, some of that stuff is, some of the stuff that made them is negative stuff. It's it's bad childhood stuff. It's things that have happened to them. It's things that they have done wrong in their life, even though it goes against the kind, caring person that somebody wants to be. When you find those things, how do you help people overcome either the guilt that they feel or the anger, all those emotions that you talked about when we started talking at the beginning? How do you push those emotions over to the side and help them work on the positive stuff and become successful?
Yeah, so a lot of it again is who they are, finding out who they are, uncovering any unhelpful beliefs about themselves that they think are true and they aren't necessarily true, and and also being mindful and understanding that things that happened in the past, you can use them to draw on for present experiences. But if we live in the past, we're going to feel regret. We're going to feel those negative emotions if we live there. If we constantly keep going back, I did this and it was terrible, and you dwell on that. Yes, draw on it for your what you need to do in your life, in your sessions and in your shows. But if you live there, you're going to have regret. And it's the same thinking about too far into the future. If you live in the future, you're going to feel anxious because it's uncertain, and we don't like uncertainty to a point. But if you live right now, in this present moment, like you and I talking right now, there's nothing to worry about. Just you and I, just having a chat, just in this present moment. Right. I'm relaxed, I'm good, I'm not anxious, and I'm not regretful because of something that happened in the past. So if someone is angry because of what happened then, it's about, again, first of all, understanding who you are, tackling belief systems that are troubling and unhelpful, and then work on being present and mindful, because it really can help with those feelings and those emotions. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Let's talk about the competitive nature of comics. So I'll tell you how the comedy scenes are. So in the United States, we've got the East Coast, West Coast. So we got New York and LA. Those are the two big hubs. They always have been, they always will be. But we've also got like Chicago, we've got Denver, we've got Atlanta, and then we've got small towns like what I live in. And in my town, there's probably 40 people who consider themselves to be comedians. And there's a very competitive nature, and yet we also want to help each other. So when you're dealing in a competitive world, what type of advice do you give to people to, first of all, stay competitive, but second off, be a human and not step on everybody that that you possibly can to get where you want to be?
Yeah, again, a very, very good question, because if there's a lot of you around, there's competition, but you are you, and people are going to resonate with you, and some people won't. And I know I've said that already, but be you, be on completely and utterly you, because obviously you've got your act and you need to do what you need to do there, but that's yours and yours only. So compete, absolutely compete. You want to be the best, you want to be the one that people watch, then go for it, take action on it, because who knows what's going to come. And remember that everything is an experience. So whether you're going to win, you're going to lose. I don't like to say lose, because I feel that a loss is an opportunity for growth, which is essentially a win, because when you grow, you win. So see, if there's competition, great. Allow that to push you forward even more. Allow you to feel confident in yourself to take more action, so you can then put yourself out there more and dive into it and see what comes from it. Yeah, 100%. Embrace it. Embrace the competition. I would. I do. Right. It's not always easy, but just do it anyway.
Well, it's also kind of what keeps you alive as a comic, because you need something to strive for. And if you're competing, then that gives you something to go for. That's actually one of your goals. If you're competing is to come out on top over 12 comics,
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Yeah, go for it. Just find that, speak to people that will give you that confidence to be even more competitive, because you want to win, right?
Right.
But if you don't win, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, because it's an opportunity to learn, and then
Right.
see, what can I do next? How can I, and see it, get playful with it. I'm sure as a comic you are quite playful, so get playful with it. What can I do this time, and what can I incorporate here? How can I build more confidence? Do I need to speak to anyone in particular, and go from there? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you touched on something that is very common in the comedy world, which is failure. And failure comes, it seems to be a lot of highs and lows in comedy. So you do a great set on Friday. You just knocked it out of the park. People were standing in line to shake your hand. Everybody loves you. Saturday, you do the same set and it's crickets. Nobody responded. And then Sunday, you do a show and it's good again. So it's up and down. So as far as failure is concerned, I would say comedians work, if they're a working comedian, they're probably at least 40% failure. I mean, just sets that don't go well. And that's the worst failure you can get, or also not getting an audition. If you're a writer, they don't buy your jokes, or, whatever it is, or you're writing a script, they don't buy that. So there's all those things that come into play. What type of advice do you give people who are on a losing streak? They're kind of on the fail side of the hill, and they don't see a way back up. What do you do to help people overcome obviously, those negative thoughts that come along with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's important to keep an eye out for those thoughts again. Is that awareness? Because one knock, one loss. I hate to call it a loss, like I said. Once something not going your way once, okay, that's cool. I could deal with that. Twice, okay, I could deal with that too. 3 times, is it me?
Yeah.
Am I not good enough?
Yeah.
Maybe they don't like me. Is it the way I look? Is it the way that I talk? 4 times, oh, crikey, I don't know if I could do this anymore. I don't know if I could do another knock. 5 times, 6 times. So, and it's these thoughts, because did you notice how I changed my thoughts there?
Yeah.
Yeah. They got progressively more negative, and more doubt and less belief and low confidence. Whereas if you're aware of your thoughts, you can go, okay, no, it's 3 times, but yes, it's not what I want, but I know that Friday night in April 2020, I had more people on their feet than I ever had. And I know that in May, I had half the amount of people. So I know that I can do it. So what can I do to try and improve this? And then I go and implement that. That's what I'd sort of recommend, is that listen to your thoughts, because if you let them compound negatively, then all of a sudden you go from there high to low very, very quickly, if you don't listen in. But if you're aware and you catch those thoughts, you can do something about them. I often say, if you don't notice, you can't do anything about anything. When you notice, you can. I know it sounds really, really simple, but if you just let these thoughts take over, and all of a sudden you're not aware of them, you go from being in a good place to a bad place, and you don't know why. Whereas if you keep that awareness, you'll keep track of them, and you'll start to go, okay, well, that isn't helpful. That's not going to get me where I want to get to. That's not going to pick me up. So let me change that and create a positive vibe and something in line with where I want to go.
Right. And I think you're talking about looking at things more objectively than looking at them with your emotions. And how can you get somebody in a mindset to look at things objectively? Because that seems to be a key that is really hard for people to surmount. They're living in these emotions, and they're either too high or too low, and they can't look at things objectively. How do you help them do that?
Practice.
Okay.
It takes some time. It takes not a lot of time, I work with people for a minimum of 4 weeks, because I feel that in those 4 weeks you can make drastic changes. And then after that, we tend to work for every other week, or a little bit longer sometimes, depending on how often we need to see each other. Or after the 4 weeks, sometimes it's enough. But most people like that accountability. But it takes time. It takes that awareness to challenge thoughts, because like I said earlier at the start, our thoughts, if we manage our thoughts, we can control our emotions. And if our emotions are up and down, it means that we're not managing our thoughts. So it takes time to be able to do that. Like I said, not a lot of time. Often 4 weeks can do it, or 4 sessions can do it. And having that person doesn't necessarily have to be a coach, but someone that you can talk to, a fellow comic, where you can speak to them and say, this is how I'm feeling, and dissect the thoughts and bounce off of each other. So yeah, it takes a little bit of practice, but yeah, definitely 100% doable. 100%.
Excellent. Do you have any recommendations on what somebody should do when they wake up in the morning, and what they should do when they go to bed at night to stay confident and stay mindful?
Absolutely. So I'll tell you something that I do every single morning. I will, no matter how I feel, as soon as I open my eyes, I smile, whether it's one of those smiles, and I'll say, today is going to be a great day. That's the first thing I do. I smile. Like I said, it could be the worst smile you've ever seen in your life. And I will say, today is going to be a great day. Sometimes through gritted teeth, because I'm tired and it's tough. But what that does for me is that wakes up the side of the part of my brain that says, hey, let's make today great. And it's going to look for ways to make today great. So that's the first thing that I do, and I'd highly recommend that. You may not see a drastic improvement straight away, but do that every single day, and it compounds, and you end up something just shifts ever so slightly. And then before bed, I highly recommend journaling, getting the thoughts out of the mind. One, it helps you sleep, because whether you like to think it or not, unconsciously you've got all of these thoughts running around your mind. And sometimes just actively writing down the thought, you'll probably know, the thought of writing, actually writing, the practice of it, it takes me back to when I know things on the computer now, but when I was at school and writing. And sometimes when I write, I just go and go and go and go. So just before bed, I'll often write on a bit of paper, just a few thoughts, get them out of my head, helps me sleep better. And then I wake up, today's going to be a great day, and repeat.
That's good. That's two things I wouldn't have expected you to say. So that's really good. Yeah.
Okay.
One of the things that's very common, I've talked to a lot of comics, and one of the things that happens to a comic who gets successful a little bit earlier than they expected, or a little bit earlier than other comics. So I'll see a comic that's been doing it for 3 years and they're a headliner, and I'll see a comic who's been doing it for 10 years and they really never even headlined. They've maybe done a feature act. But a lot of them get thrown into situations where they weren't technically ready for. So an example of that would be, so a lot of times it takes a year to get a good 5 minutes. And somebody a year in, they get pegged to do 30 minutes. And they go and do it, and they're actually successful at it. And then somebody who's been doing it for 3 years, all of a sudden gets kicked up to headliner, and they got to do 45 to an hour. So there have been people who are successful at that because they were prepared. First off, they didn't have 45 solid minutes, but they at least had the idea in their head, and they could work it out on stage, do a little bit of crowd work, and do whatever it took to fill that time and still keep people entertained and laughing. But there are also people who have gotten thrown into that and they failed miserably, and they just totally walked away from comedy because of it. So in those types of situations, I think it's two different people, the ones that are prepared and the ones that aren't prepared, and the act of going through that painful experience is enough to make them want to rethink what their life goals are. if you're that person that goes through the really bad one, they're supposed to do 45 minutes and it just goes awful for them. They can only fill 10 or whatever. And the rest of it's just silence. What would you say to them before they quit comedy altogether?
Don't quit comedy.
Okay.
100%. It's having that experience, right? That must be a real wow. Like it is all learning. Like, it didn't go the way that I wanted. It actually went terribly. Excellent. What can I do now? Like, what can I learn from that? Because did I need to learn? Did I need to rehearse what I was doing more frequently? Because if you think about it, if you are consciously trying to think of everything you need to do, you don't really know it, so you're really trying to focus on it. You're not looking around the room. You're not looking at what's happening, whether someone's yawning, whether someone's got their arm up wanting to ask a question, whether anyone's clapping or falling asleep, because you're so focused on trying to think of your material. Whereas if you are so prepared that you unconsciously, you just need a few prompts in your mind to help you get the words out, then you free up cognitive space consciously. So you can see if someone's yawning, you can pick up the energy in the room. You can see if someone is nodding off, and you can then, hey, pick on them because you're a comic and you're allowed to. So yeah, I would say you need to look at why it didn't go well, and definitely don't quit. See it as a perfect opportunity to learn, grow quicker, because maybe some people are never going to have that chance, and the fact that you've had it enables you to then push on in a much quicker fashion. So yeah, don't quit. Definitely not.
And I think we touched on this a little bit at the beginning. One of the other things that can happen with a comic is that they are overconfident, and they feel like that they're ready for this 30 to 45 minute set. They're going to knock it out of the park. Everything's going to be fantastic. They get booked for it because they talk themselves up really well to the booker, and they get in the middle of it and they find out they weren't as ready as they thought they were. They either forget jokes, or the act isn't as polished as they want, and they lose the audience or whatever. Once you get knocked down a peg, which is a little bit different than just totally all out failing, but just knowing you're not as good as you are, what type of a mindset do you have to do to get yourself back, to get the confidence back to say, okay, I am ready for that 30-minute or 45-minute set?
Yeah, I mean, if someone was to come to me and say that, and say, I was hugely confident, didn't go the way I wanted, and now I've been knocked down a peg, I don't feel I'm as good as I thought I was. I would say, what? Why not? Why are you not feeling like you're as good? You said you were once. Just because something didn't quite go your way, it doesn't mean that you're not as good. It just means that you thought about it in a different way. And that will often just trigger someone and go, oh, actually, yeah, I suppose that I am that good, but maybe tonight wasn't my night. And it's a difficult question to answer without actually having that person in front of me and asking them targeted questions, because sometimes just one question will just open up their mind and think, oh no, yeah, you're right. Actually, I'm right. As in they're right. So yeah, I hope that kind of makes sense in a way.
Okay, let's play a little bit. I held a comedy contest last night, and I had 7 great comics on the contest. It was streamed live, and I absolutely screwed up because my soundboard was set up incorrectly. And the only way that this could go on was for me to mute myself in between comics. Fortunately, I had a host, and I just, at the end of the night, I felt like the biggest failure in the world. I felt like, okay, I should not be doing this. And I've got 2 more rounds of this stuff to go. So say I come to you, okay, Scott, hey, it's me, Scott. I'm on the phone, and I just had a terrible night. I think I'm going to quit podcasting, and I'm gonna definitely stop doing these live shows. I just don't know what to do. Help me out of it, Scott.
When's your next live, Scott?
It's the 14th of September.
14th of September. Okay, so you've got 2 weeks. What did you figure out what you needed to, what went wrong?
I think so, but I'm not 100%.
Okay, so how long is it going to take you to maybe figure that out?
It's going to be at least another day or two.
Okay, and you've got until the 14th.
Mm-hmm.
So once you figured it out and you know what went wrong and you can fix that, do you feel like you could probably be okay for the 14th and see how it goes?
Yeah, I do. But if I have another night like I had last night, then I'm just going to feel so bad that I'm never going to do anything again. I'm just going to go to bed.
I'm just going to go to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll sleep it off and you'll feel much better, right?
No, for the rest of my life. I'm just going to go to bed.
And if you think about it, then you've gone through it, and you had how many people? 7 people. What kind? How many people would you like to have at one time? Stream while you're streaming.
No more than 7.
How many people would you have watching?
I would. Oh, I'd like to have thousands watch.
Yeah, and how many people were watching? Do you know?
About 500.
About 500. So
yeah.
At least you sorted it before you got to that 1,000, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got your next on the 14th, and you know you're going to know what went wrong. You're going to fix it, and you're going to go again, which means that you know it's not going to happen again, and you're going to feel confident in yourself that actually on that 14th it's going to go well. You've learned from what went wrong, and you did it before you got to tens of thousands of people. You did it when you were small and you're still learning, you're still growing. And imagine if it happened with 10,000 people, it'd be a lot worse, wouldn't it?
Right. Yeah, you're right. I do feel a lot of regret, though, Scott, that I feel like I let down the 7 people that performed last night because I don't think they were on top of their game, because the sound issues caused a bunch of echo and they couldn't hear themselves. So I don't want to let people down again. How can I keep from doing that?
So the best thing to do is to make sure that it doesn't happen again, and look into ways that there's the reasons why, and then fix that. And it sounds to me like you're doing that. And what could you do for those people potentially to help them? The ones that were on?
Apologizing was one of the things I did. So I did that profusely, and
good.
I will probably do that a couple more times before the week's out.
Yeah. And will they get another opportunity?
They will definitely be first on my list for the next opportunity.
Okay, fantastic. That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think you talked me out of it.
Good. Yeah. On the spot.
Yeah. But I can tell you those, I didn't stick into those particular thoughts, but there were times last night when I was in the pit of despair. I was like, nothing can be worse than what's going on right now. And I wish I never would have even started doing this. I mean, I did have those thoughts, and then coming out of it, I did pretty much exactly what you talked me through and said, okay, let's find the source of the problem. Let's look at the facts. Don't look at my emotions. Don't look at the fact that, I sweat through a shirt because this was going so bad. And let's find out what the problem was, fix it, make sure it never happens again, and move on to the next thing. So I personally am not a long regret type guy. But during those times, I was thinking about talking to you last night, because I was thinking, okay, how would Scott handle this? Because I'm at the lowest point I could possibly be doing a show right now. How do I come out of that and feel confident to do it again?
Yeah, I think you did everything that you needed to do at that moment in time. And that's something you can really, really take away. You were able to go along with it. You pushed through it, and you've learned from that. You know what's wrong. You fixed what's wrong, and the chances of it happening again are very slim.
Right.
But you did everything right, because you ended up muting yourself so you could make sure that everyone was heard. You apologized profusely. You're going to apologize a couple more times. They're going to be at the top of your list next time. You fix the problem. You're not going to let it happen again. It's an opportunity for learning and growing. So you did everything right. And that's in a coaching session with you at that point, we would go through that, and I imagine you feel pretty confident about moving forward now.
Oh yeah,
yeah, exactly. And do you have any thoughts that are sort of lingering, a negative thought or anything at the moment?
Not really. If you were to categorize me, I would be more of the overconfident type than the underconfident. So I coming out of it, I knew I was going to fix it, and I know the next one's going to be great. So but when you're in the middle of it, I can see how people would take those thoughts and they would go to bed with those thoughts, and they'd wake up with those thoughts, and they would take it to the point where they can't function because the negative thoughts just took over.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that awareness to do exactly what you did. It's to deal with it and change that thought pattern pretty quickly, so you don't dwell on it, and so it doesn't affect you for weeks on end. It just affects you for that moment in time, and maybe a few hours after.
Yeah, that was a fun exercise.
Yeah. And then I've got, there's so many techniques that I would use during that. If someone had a thought of, what's the point of me doing it? I don't think I can do this again. And there's a negative thought running through their mind consistently. There's a technique that I tend to use, and we dial down that negative thought, and then we think of a positive one and we dial that one up. And that can have a real positive effect on someone. So there's so many things you can do when it comes to negative thoughts, but you did exactly what I would have done at that moment in time. Yeah.
Right. One of the things that comics get into, and I don't want to keep you real long, but one of the things comics get into is they don't allow themselves to enjoy the success that they have. So say they have a really good set, they don't allow themselves to enjoy the success that they have because they know a bad one's going to be coming down the road. And then some of them get too overconfident after something like that, and they do things that they shouldn't, like book a larger set than they're able to do, and things like that. But do you have any specific things that help people celebrate their successes in a fashion that is healthy, that you don't over celebrate, but you also allow yourself to say, hey, I did something good here?
Literally, as you just said it. How many people give themselves a pat on the back? Some people don't at all. It's if people can't accept compliments from other people, then they definitely don't compliment themselves. So if you do something well, I know I do, and I encourage my clients to. If you perform well, if something goes right, go, I did that really well. Because acknowledge it. It will give you that boost in confidence. You don't need to necessarily go out and buy yourself a new car. That's overconfident.
Yeah.
But saying, I did that really well. If someone says, oh, you did that well. Oh, I did actually. Yeah, thank you. I did. Yeah. Acknowledge it, because it's okay to be kind to yourself. Be kind, because it will just boost that confidence within you, and accept compliments, but also compliment yourself, because that's really, really important. Yeah.
Very good. And I got to say that I'm very confident in the fact that having you as a guest was a good idea. So
that's very kind. Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's funny. We're both in these what I call trash Facebook groups that you throw posts out there, and you either get a kook or you get somebody who just wants to promote themselves. And I saw yours and I said, I don't think he's a kook. I think he's all right. So I reached out to you, and I'm glad I did.
That's very kind. And likewise, it's a very strange environment sometimes.
Yeah.
But when I saw you, I thought, yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah, I like the sound of that.
Yeah. This has been really good. Now, when you do your coaching, I suppose you probably have a way that you can do remote coaching and talk kind of like we are here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, most of my coaching, especially due to COVID, is all Zoom. all online, Zoom
Mhm.
or Skype or whatever you want to call it. I know you're using something different, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's all remote now. We just
Okay.
jump on a phone, and it's just as effective. It's the modern way. Yeah, for
Okay.
sure.
Great. And how can people reach out to you if they'd like to engage in your services?
So you can reach out to me. I've got on my website, which is scotthardimancoaching.com.
Okay.
You can go onto my Facebook and search me, add me as a friend, and yeah, we can, any time I'll try and help in any way I can, as always. And if you do want to have a chat, then we can have something I call a discovery call, and we can just talk things through and go from there. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, great. This has been really good, and I think that what comes out of this is something that, comics can use it, and
good.
obviously anybody can use it, but the comedy world doesn't get a whole lot of business coaching or confidence coaching. So I think that's something that that is really needed. So I think you're a good fit for that. And I want
Thank
to
you.
thank you for being on the show. I know it's going on. Well, it's 9 o'clock your time now. So
Cool. That's perfect. No, I get all I can say is thank you so much for having me. And to any comedians out there, just believe in yourself. It's fundamentally so important. You have that belief, you have that confidence, and reach out to people. Like you've got people in your support network. Whether you're feeling
Mhm.
negative or positive, have that support network, and it's nice. It's good. But yeah, thank you
Right,
so much.
great.